Okay then, before we go into the main agenda, I'd just like to read out some notices. I would like to remind everybody that this meeting is being broadcast live over the internet, so we are all on camera. Please be aware you may be visible on the screen when people around you are speaking, and please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. This meeting is available to view online now and in the future, whenever and wherever people wish to view it. There is no need, therefore, for any other filming of the meeting to take place. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings, but I've had no requests to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. I'd like to welcome everybody attending the meeting and anybody watching the meeting via the webcast, but can I ask that all mobile phones and other noisy devices be put on silent? If there is an emergency alarm, we'll need to follow the green signs and go to the ground floor of the Civic car park. And if we have any motions or amendments during the meeting, I will need them to be clear and in writing before we go to the vote. Okay, if we move on then to agenda item 1 is attendance, and the registers going around the room. Then, I've gone too far now. So if somebody's watching on the webcast, they're zooming ahead. Okay, item 2, apologies for absence.
Yes, apologies from Councillor Hugh Bevan, David Daniels, Giles Davis, Mandy Owen and Richard Overton.
Thank you. Members, any more apologies? Yeah.
Rose Seaborn.
Yeah. Oh, Giles is here. Okay, thank you. Item 3 then is declarations of interest, so I'll ask Justine Cass to advise us.
Thank you. Members, whilst it is your responsibility to declare any personal prejudicial interests, to assist, I can state that there is a personal interest for the board members of the Blaenavon Workmen's Hall in agenda item number 12 to assist. And I have discussed this with Democratic Services. I understand it's to be Councillor Alan Jones. Councillor Jones, is that correct? Right. Thank you. Councillor Janet Jones, is that correct? And Councillor Stuart Evans, is that correct?
For clarity, Chair, I'm not a board member. I'm on outside bodies from TCBC.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, brilliant. Members, any other declarations before we move on? And please remember to write them in the register as well. Item 4 then is the confirmation of council minutes. So the first set is from the 18th of July. Are there any corrections that need to be noted? If not, are we all happy that those are a true record? Move yet? Can I have a show of hands on those in favour? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, the second set were from the 23rd of July. Again, were there any corrections needed? If not, are we happy for those to be true records? Thank you. Those in favour? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, agenda item 5, page 43 of the agenda, updates on actions. Are there any questions about these?
It's not a question, Madam Presiding Officer. It's one update and one apology update. The one in relation to discussing the issue of independent or whatever members being allowed onto committees. I reported last time that it had been brought up with the WLGA. I was at a WLGA leaders meeting during the summer and discussed it with the leaders, and the appropriate officer in the WLGA is taking soundings of councils and will report back to us and petition the Minister on the basis of those findings. When I have more information, obviously I'll update you further. The second one, and it is an apology and an omission on my part, there is and thanks to Councillor Kemp for raising it privately, there was a request at the last meeting from a question from Councillor Kemp in relation to last year's scrutiny report and the 5 vacancies on scrutiny committees. They weren't permanent vacancies. 3 of them resulted from people resigning from groups, and the interim scrutiny committees before new people were appointed, and 2 were 2 resignations, and the scrutiny met before people were reappointed. So on 5 occasions there were vacant seats. I hope that deals with the issue. If you want more information, I can supply it.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? No. In that case, then, we move on to agenda item 6, which is receipt of petitions. So can I ask Louise Kirby to come down and present her petition, please?
Okay, please read this petition. Take note that residents of Torfaen are greatly concerned with your use of glyphosate all over the county. The petition currently has 686 signatures. And basically is asking to stop the spraying of the possible carcinogen glyphosate. May I hand it to you?
Yes, thank you. If you would hand me the... Thank you very much. Okay. Item 7 is public question time. Pardon? Oh, yeah, sorry. We'll hand the petition first to the exec member. Okay, item 7, public question time. So can I ask Catherine to come down and ask her question, please?
Hi, my question is mainly based on the discussions held during the Torfaen Council Democracy and Scrutiny meeting titled Cleaner Overview and Scrutiny and dated 14th of November 2018. Is Torfaen County Borough Council now willing to reassess the use of glyphosate in Torfaen?
Thank you for your question. The Council has just received your petition, which has requested that we stop spraying with glyphosate. By receiving this petition as exec member, I commit to looking at the issue once more, taking on board the points you have raised, looking at practice once more from elsewhere, and also engaging with other members, residents, partners and the industry on the best way forward. I will add that the Cleaner Scrutiny Committee did look at this in detail, and I know weighed up the pros and cons, and it wasn't an easy decision to make. We've always committed to reviewing the weed control practice, but I think it appropriate that a review is done before I can definitely answer the question that you've asked of me today. I extend an invite to meet with yourself and your colleagues and ask officers to listen to your views as part of this review. And I want to thank you for your commitment for raising this important issue. It is an issue that I have taken a personal interest as well. I'm often reading data online, so I do appreciate where you're coming from. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 8 then is announcements from the leader. Leader, do you have any announcements?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I'd just like to first of all thank everyone who took the time on a not particularly sunny morning to turn out this morning to the flag raising ceremony. It was something that we arranged as sort of a first attempt at doing this, and something I hope will continue in future years. I think it's right that we remember the 3 soldiers who died in Afghanistan from our area, and hopefully that's something that can happen each year as that anniversary of Kyle Adams and James Prosser's deaths come about. And also in 2022, of course, it will be the 10th anniversary of Michael Thacker's death as well, so I think it's something that maybe we can build on in future years. But thank you also to the the staff who took the time on a busy council morning to help prepare the necessary parts of the ceremony that we had this morning, and to everyone who turned up. On that subject, I'd also like to thank Alan Jones for showing me the Armed Forces Directory of Support for Gwent that's now been produced as part of the Armed Forces Covenant. This is full of lots of really good information for support services for Armed Forces serving personnel and veterans. Hopefully we can put a copy in the members' room, so that's something that you can signpost people to if you ever get inquiries. I know we do as local councillors. I really am determined, working with Alan and with other members who I know are interested in this issue, to do our best on this issue, both in terms of our policies on things like housing and recruitment, where our guaranteed interview schemes already had some success, and in terms of making sure that we do our best to support Armed Forces veterans and serving personnel as well. I'd like to thank Alan for his work on this, and also thank all the other members who are interested. I know there's a lot of interest in this issue from members right across the chamber, and I hope that's something we can continue to work on a cross-party basis. If anyone's got any particular issues they'd like to discuss with Alan and myself, our doors are always open, so you're welcome to do that.
Deputy Chief Secretary, have any announcements?
No announcements.
Okay. Item 9 is a presentation by the Youth Council, and Gaynor is going to introduce it.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This presentation is going to be done by a member of Pontypool Community Council's Youth Council, and Caitlin is Chair of the Youth Council, and alongside with her is Callum from TVA. So thank you.
Hello, we're members of the Pontypool Youth Council. I'm the chairperson, Caitlin, and this is Callum. We as a group are committed to, we've sort of decided to commit to the mental health of young people, as it's such an issue at the moment, and issues are rising more and more each day, so we've decided to commit to mental health, and we've done this in several ways. This began in France when we went on to a youth conference for a week, and we made a survey and sort of asked questions to young people on how they use social media and how issues arise from social media and how social media can affect people. Through that survey we noticed a few issues that we wanted to work on, and we decided to begin writing a mental health play to raise awareness for the young people, and we wanted to target young people in an appropriate way. There's a school play called Wings to Fly when you're in year 5, year 6, that's to do with drugs, and we thought by making a play that will include groups such as gay and lesbian community groups and drama groups and sort of any sort of group, we would present it to ages 12 to 15 before stress begins, such as puberty, relationships, exams and stress of the future, so children could sort of see the play and reference advice, and they know where to go to and who to talk to. And because nothing is very obvious about mental health, it's such a new thing that's arose for young people to say that it's not normal to feel depressed, it's not normal to have anxiety, to not want to go outside. Nothing's normal, and nothing is very obvious for children to sort of grasp onto the information and know that they're okay. The play is one form that we've decided to sort of bring aboard the mental health issues. Another would be a website to hook up some information. Children can just use the internet to go onto a website and research why they're feeling that way, who they can speak to, and maybe just grasp some advice. We've also spoken about the idea of training some teachers to be able to speak to young people, as an issue with mental health is that waiting lists for counselling is so long. I know that my older brother went through issues with depression and anxiety, and he had to wait about 10 months to see a counsellor, and it's not really fair that children are having to sit through that, just feeling depressed and not being able to speak to their parents or their teachers or anyone around them, and it's sort of not accessible for young people as it is maybe for adults, because adults have a wage and they can go and they can pay private for counselling, but with students and young people it's a lot harder. Maybe they don't want to tell their parents they're feeling that way. So we think by training teachers to be able to speak to young people would be a form of the children not feeling embarrassed to have to speak to the teacher, saying, I've had an argument with my friend, maybe I can speak to them, and just they can give me information that will help. We think they'd be beneficial for all the teachers and for the young students, because through surveys we have spoken to teachers, and teachers have said, I don't know what to do when I see someone depressed. I don't know what to say to them. So we think it would be beneficial for everyone, and this training would be free, but it's more of a time constraint on everyone and who would be willing to do this. With the play, we presented the idea of the play and the teachers' training to the One Voice Wales, and we actually have won a youth award for youth engagement. Out of the category, we won from all across Wales, we won the Youth Engagement Award, and that is something we are quite proud of as a youth council that's only been formed again after a few years. This year we've had a youth conference again, where our twin countries, 10 from each twin country, came over, and we planned a youth conference, and us as a youth group did plan everything that we had on the agenda. We had activities such as Big Pit, Llandegfed water sports. We took them down to Cardiff Centre, and then the conference was on the day before we left, and the idea of the conference was to bring our countries together and to ensure the adults understand the issue. The idea was as well that the issue wasn't just in Wales, and it wasn't just our group that was saying mental health is an issue. Each country had similar problems in the youths. I can say that Breton, the issues that young people were concerned with was the school, the future, anxiety, social media, self-perception, and the other countries also included that. We discussed the results of the concerns, which would lead to insecurities and lack of confidence, which could lead to depression and bullying and lack of friends and drug usage. It could arise loads of issues that are physical as well as mentally damaging. We'd also discussed what young people would like to be done with the concerns, such as more youth services and young people, so people can go visit and everything such as that. School advocates for young people, so that young people can help themselves and they can ask out. Early intervention, which would be our sort of play, to sort of allow young people to know that whatever they go through in the next few years is okay, and that they can have something to sort of help them. Everyone said that they would like more information about the issues and the services that are available to them, so it's obviously not a problem that is just in Pontypool, it's all across Wales and it's in every country, and we just sort of want to help young people really grasp services, such as ideas that were suggested in the conference was maybe like little cards saying, having numbers and text messages, who they can text, and like websites online, and maybe more leaflets around, because the only place where you can really grasp that information is if you go into the doctors, and a lot of people won't go into the doctors because their mums and dads, they'll ask where they go in, and a lot of people won't willingly go into the doctors and say, I feel depressed. So that's what we have been discussing with the other countries. Our delegates were also involved in the conversations, and we've asked the delegates to really help with this and sort of arise the issue, because the issue really with the adults isn't that they're not aware, it's more that they're aware, but they say they'll do something and they won't. So we've decided to have another online conference in 6 months and see what has really changed and progressed in the other countries, so that young people can actually begin having these issues dealt with. Some of the issues that our delegates promised to do in Pontypool was to start early and look for work with younger children before the problems arise, and look at the issues of mental health from early years and following it through to your age when you're in school. They want to find new ways to educate adults. We've been told that the delegates will help us produce the play to put on in schools for younger children, and they are going to help seek improve the content of social life and skill sessions in schools to sort of arise these problems. If anyone would like to see, there's a leaflet on the side that you can grab if you would like to read the issues further. Another issue we would like to discuss is that we would like support to open up a new youth group. There is 3 youth groups in Torfaen, I'm pretty sure, and there is not a lot of support. I know that the youth group that's near me is open, I think, maybe 3 times a week for half a day, and we think that having a community youth group for young people will help their mental health and help them have a place to be when they don't want to be at home because perhaps they're having family issues, or they'd like a place to sort of derail themselves after a long day and just sit down and talk to their friends. We've spoken about having different sort of youth groups. We've spoken about maybe having like a coffee club, or maybe just like a really chilled place for them to just sit, and perhaps having some advice and somebody to speak to at the centre. We know that there would be ongoing costs, and the costs if we were to rent a place, but we were hoping for maybe a bit of support from everyone to sort of do this, because we think there would be a lot of more support for young people, and just really, it would really just help out a lot of young people that don't have anywhere to go, and we think maybe it will help the issues of rubbish on the floor and a lot of teens drinking just in random places. We think it might help if we have more youth groups open. That is an issue that we did raise when we had a small meeting with the council a few months back, and we just wanted to present it here. I think that's everything. We just wanted to say at the end that we know that a lot of young people are really misjudged, and I hope that today I've showed you that we're not all bad, and maybe sometimes when someone is acting out that maybe they are going through something and they don't have the support. So we're really hoping for just everything to be dealt with going through this, and I think a lot of adults need to be reminded that soon we will be sat where you are, and what would you like to be seen done with our town after you guys are gone. So I think if we aren't allowed the access to support systems and comfort places as a youth group now, how would we be able to deal with it in the future? And another issue that some of our fellow youth councillors did raise is that this time isn't really very convenient, and if you'd like a lot of more access to young people, maybe perhaps we need to sort of arise the issues that timings and everything is a lot. It's like, what's the word? I can't think of the word.
Convenient?
Yeah, it's convenient for adults, but if young people want to be involved, it's not at convenient times, because a lot of our youth councillors couldn't be here today because they were in school, and it's not very convenient. We just like more access for young people so that they can sort of arise issues themselves, and we would like just more access to information on how to attend these meetings, because we wouldn't have known if we hadn't been told. So maybe just a bit more access for young people. Is there any questions? Jason?
Yeah, can I congratulate you on a fantastic presentation? Really well done. I think speaking in a forum like this is intimidating at the best of times, and I'm sure Saturday it's quite intimidating. So thank you very much. I want to say thank you not only to you but to your wider organisation for what you've achieved. You talked about support and what support is needed. Are you asking councillors for, is it time, resource, funding that you need to achieve your goals next?
I think maybe all of those.
Yeah.
All of those, yeah. We don't have a lot of support and we don't have a lot of time from councillors to really help us with what we're doing. And it would just be really nice to have awareness from the councillors to help us. Ida?
As leader of Pontypool Community Council, I will use... What was that? Oh.
Okay, now continue now.
Sorry about that, Anthony. As leader of Pontypool Community Council, our youth always get me very emotional. I am so proud of them, and what they've achieved is absolutely amazing, and I've always tried to support them as much as I can. I'd like to thank Callum as well for always being at their side. The Youth Festival Conference was absolutely amazing, and I am so proud of what our Youth Council achieved, but I'm also proud of the youth that came over from our twin towns, and they actually did their countries proud. I'd like to also thank Councillor John Killock, who's Deputy Leader. He put a lot of time and a lot of effort into this youth conference being a success. The next person to thank, or people, is the staff from Pontypool Community Council, the effort that they put in to make sure that conference was a massive success, and it was a massive success, and it was great for our youth to be with the youth of other countries, which is very important for them to also keep the contact there. So I just want to say a well done to everybody, and I'm so proud of you all.
Okay.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'd just like to thank you again for the presentation. I think you raised a number of points initially about young people's mental health that I think we need to think about as a society. The challenge that faces us, certainly the pressures on young people today are quite scary in many respects, especially with the joys of social media, which many people in this room will know all too well, and the other sort of expectations to conform, and sort of the idealised lifestyles that sometimes get presented, and the impact that can have on people trying to come of age in today's society. So I think that's something that we all need to put our heads together and work out how we can devote the resources into giving more support to young people. I think the point you make about information's a good one. Sometimes the information's available, but it's not in the places that younger people especially want it, or they have to go through parents, and that can be awkward. So how do we equip the right places as well as we can to make sure that information is available so people can access support when they need it? So thank you for highlighting those points. I hope all those things are something that we can work together on. To agree with the question that Jason, Councillor O'Connell put, how can we work together to make sure this isn't just a case of you coming along to council once, us all saying nice things about you, and then nothing changes. I'm keen to do whatever we can, and maybe to take your lead on how we can work to build on this. I think the point you make about community youth groups is interesting. It's always frustrated me that we have a lot of facilities in our communities, but sometimes they close when school finishes, or when adult education centres close for the evenings. How could we maybe use those better to help give our young people facilities? Of course, the other frustrating thing in recent years, over the past decade, has been that we've seen this throughout the country, where austerity means that public services retrench into just dealing with acute need and don't deal with the kind of preventative services that can can help people. And I think youth work is one of those things. I'm proud of the youth service that we have in Torvine. The play schemes certainly are always an inspiration, but how can we make sure that we work to protect and enhance those services wherever possible, even when our resources are continually squeezed. I think you make an important point about the image of young people. I think you get so much unfair stick and generalisation thrown your way, and I think that's why events like today are important to show the positive side, and so that we can all remember that we were young once, try and put ourselves in that position and what it felt like, and not sometimes be so judgmental about young people. So I'd like to end by saying two things. One is the question of how can we, if maybe officers and members can think how we can take something forward from today. And just secondly, to say thank you to Pontypool Community Council. I went along to part of the youth conference and it was really inspiring, the combination of the young people, and it was very much focused around the young people, not on delegations of adults. It was the young people who were leading the way, and both discussing important issues but also having a good weekend. And I think the balance that you struck between those two was really good. So thank you to everyone who made that possible in Pontypool Community Council. If you can take back my thanks going to them, that'd be great.
Okay, Ronnie?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to congratulate the Youth Council, and for the short time you've been here and what you presented to us, and I think it's opened a lot of eyes here today. And what I picked up on is again in schools, and I know personally myself what happens in schools when there are children with problems that they have, their class is disruptive, troublemakers, excluded or put outside the class, and teachers don't recognise the symptoms, and that's what we're lacking in the education department. And we have to have people, as you say, for youth clubs and youth centres, people that can recognise and know all the systems, which we all know we are lacking in. But most of the kids spend biggest time of their life in school, and we know that's where a lot of trouble starts, and the teachers are not recognising it. We can't blame the teachers, they're not taught on the mental health side of it. So I think, sure, the education department should be looking at this as well, to bring things in to try and help the kids cope. And I know personally some children that have problems. They're lovely, lovely kids, but as you said, they're stigmatised, they're troublemakers. And I like what you said is one day you could be sat up here. So we've got to look at it in a different manner. And thank you for that presentation. Wonderful.
Okay, Stuart?
Thank you very much indeed for that presentation. I'm a young person up there telling us what the problem. I also like to thank Gaynor and John, because I know that people from the Community Council, of which I'm the deputy leader of, went up as well and looked at that presentation. And you've always had a very strong youth council in Pontypool, which is something we haven't been able to do in Cwmbran for various reasons. But I take examples from that, and we go back and see what we do well in Cwmbran, which is the Centre for Young People. And I know you said you'd like a Centre for Young People up there. And I think that's mixing of facilities, which Anthony has alluded to, because youth facilities have been one of the things that's been hit by austerity. And I think John Killick always makes that point. Youth services have been retrenched, and they're one of the things, if you don't do something about it. Now, I'm proud to say, as one of the board members of Cwmbran Centre for Young People, that we've now been putting nights on, and they cost £7,000 a go to put a night on in Cwmbran Centre for Young People. And along with our wonderful youth service play service, which because of austerity, we're retrenched back. And I'm sure you guys will say that places to go, somewhere to hang out, somewhere to do something. And what I saw, and I'm going to be very brief about this, but there was a very interesting dialogue on Facebook the other day about all these people getting in Cwmbran Town Centre down here. And there were a lot of people realising what you just did. Ron said it, in fact. Young people aren't a problem, they're the future. And there was a lot of people there defending them. And you also seen the United Nations the other day, that young lady doing climate change. Young people are the future. They can be as young as 12 and go and do the future. So you remember, what is a problem is also the solution. And I think you're a good example of it. Long may you do that. You've got life in public service, I suspect. Thank you very much.
Dave?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I'd like to echo Councillor O'Connell's comments and congratulating you in your achievements and Pontypool Community Council. And I would just like to offer my help and Councillor Slade's help in whatever we can do to help you in achieving whatever it is that you need.
Veronica?
Thank you, Chair. My congratulations as well to on your presentation. It covers so many of the issues that many of us are probably aware of, but not quite so specifically as you brought to the fore today. Most of us sit on school governing bodies, and there is a wind of change in the way schools are being organised. We have pastoral committees, we have schools now which are looking at actually having a section of staff who will be dealing with these sorts of issues so that youngsters know just who they can go to. And I think that is the way forward. Not every teacher is going to be able to facilitate that, but if you've got certain people who are trained and understand the problems and the underlying issues, then so much the better, and it's a good way forward. So there is hope, and I wish you well in what you're doing, and all the other youngsters in our schools who are taking this forward within their own school councils as well. So thank you.
Dave Yow?
Yeah, I'd like to echo the sentiments that have already been expressed, excuse me, in terms of the presentation and the skill and clarity with which it was presented. I'd also like to echo something that Veronica just said about what's happening in schools currently and what will continue to happen. So it isn't the case that nothing is happening in this context in schools. That isn't the case at all. More can be done, and more is being done, and through the educational psychologists who visit schools regularly and talk to teachers. Veronica is absolutely correct. Not all teachers in all schools are going to be skilled and talented in this direction. There isn't the time for that. But certainly there are pivotal roles to be played by teachers in our education service, and the connection between them and the educational psychology section, and with the local education authority in general, I think we are making strides in that direction, because it is something that is a fairly recent phenomenon, and I suspect it's a fairly recent phenomenon because there are more and more people like the young lady and gent behind me who are prepared to join organisations, who are prepared to speak out. Speaking as someone who's had close-hand experience, not first-hand, but certainly close-hand experience of someone who went through some traumatic experiences and learned that the only way that this could be turned around was to actually speak out and speak to somebody. And I think that's the first step, and I think the young lady behind me has recognised that. What I am inclined to do is to issue an open invitation to the pair of you to come and see me at any time, and perhaps we can organise something where these young people can go into schools and talk to pupils, because I think that that kind of face-to-face contact is what's probably needed best. So please come and see me when we finish, okay?
Okay, Stuart Evans?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I also share the sentiments expressed here today. I think it's been a brilliant presentation, and you were very, very professional. And some of the things that you've raised, and one of the topics that are really frightening is cyberbullying, which you've captured there, alongside all the other topics that you mentioned. It's good that you are talking to young people and they are talking to you. And I take the point that you are there now, but you could be here in a couple of years' time. And I welcome that opportunity for young people to become more involved in politics and their communities. And to that end, perhaps in the future, you could come along to scrutiny meetings and sit in the public gallery and see how different topics are scrutinised and give you some feeling for the tasks that we have to do. I would like to ask you one question. How often do you meet, and how many members are of your council?
We meet once a month on a Wednesday, and there are about 15,
Yeah, between 10 and 15.
10 and 15 each meeting. And it's really just a meeting just to discuss what we're going to do what we're going to do in the next month, and what we're going to really plan to do the next thing. And then usually someone will take something home, and then by the time we meet next, we'll have a bigger idea, and then things just carry on from there.
Thank you very much for that. I look forward to your future presentations and wish you all the very best for the future.
I got Nick next.
Yes, thank you. I would very, very much like to add my congratulations. Sitting on both this council and Pontypool Community Council, I've had an opportunity to see some of the work that you do, and it really is quite fantastic. I can't let this opportunity go past without mentioning something about austerity, purely and simply because it's not about money as such, but it's what you do with it. And the one thing that was so evident in the planning that you did was, for this particular event, the youth actually took control of this. And together with, and thank you, Glenn, for paying the respects to John Killick, because between them they ran a very, very efficient, a very well organised event. It was for the youth and run by the youth, and that was so refreshing. Adult participation was restricted in it, and as a result, not only was it a fantastic event, but it was way under budget. They had a sum of money to spend, and they spent nowhere near what was necessary. And a result of that, it shows that maybe the youth have got a better idea running their councils maybe than we have here, and there's some lessons we ought to learn from that, because they actually put on a fantastic event well under budget, and as a result, again, is it fair to say that we've been able to maybe put some stuff into reserves towards the next one? So we would very much as a council like to support a lot of the things you've got going forward. So thank you. You've taught us huge lessons in many things. Thank you.
Before we go, I just want to congratulate you as well, and I'd like to say the same thing I say to all school councils and stuff when I go in, is that you're just as much right to represent to your local representatives as anyone else. And I would say to people, come to us direct, don't feel scared, tell your friends that, it's just because somebody's surgery is only people over sort of 75 complaining about their road or something, doesn't mean that your issues are not important as well. So just take that back, okay? Oh, sorry.
Hi, I'd like to congratulate Caitlin and her colleague, as everyone else has, for the amazing work and presentation that you did. And I'd like to slightly disagree with my Conservative friend, because for the last 25 years, I've worked with the youth of several counties near to this one, and seen the awful problems that you lot are going through, and have felt that in certain projects where the funding was withdrawn, we really helped you to get your wings, and for some individuals to really overcome some of their mental health issues and the problems with bullying and stuff like that. And I think the work you are doing is amazing, and I hope that as councillors we can help you to spread it out. But I'd also like to say that there were some of us who wanted to work really, really hard with a lot of youth, and weren't able to do it because a lot of third sector organisations and some county councils had their funding taken away from them because of the terrible austerity this country's been going through. And so I want to apologise to you for that, and say that I'm really pleased that all the council members here, including myself, want to spread your good work and help you and support you in doing it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Jones, could you turn your mic off? Faye? Okay then, agenda item 10, cabinet member changes. Nancy is going to present a report for us, I think. Anthony's going to even. This is page 45 of the agenda.
Okay, I won't do a long presentation on this one because it's pretty much self-explanatory. I'd like to start by paying tribute to Alan Jones for the work he's done as Cabinet Member over the past 2.5 years. It's been a pleasure to work with Alan and learn a lot off him, I think. Certainly about Glenavon, about businesses, about supporting businesses better, and on the Armed Forces Covenant where we've worked together very closely. So that has been an honour and a privilege, and I'd like to thank Alan for his hard work in that time, because I know it's not easy trying to juggle our Cabinet responsibilities and the other responsibilities we have in Council with our responsibilities back in the communities we serve. And I know he does a lot of work there as well. So I'd like to thank him for the time that he's given to his Cabinet duties. And really, I know we'll continue to work together very closely, but just really pay tribute to him at this point. I'd then like to propose the appointment of Joe Gordon to the Cabinet Member's position. This is an important job, I think, it's an important job as Exec Member for Corporate Governance and Performance, I think, because it's one of the overarching roles in Cabinet. So it's someone who can really get involved in the breadth of the Council's activities and try and improve performance and make sure that we're governed appropriately across the different portfolio holders and across the different departments. I think Jo will bring forensic skills to that. I think she'll bring intelligence to that. I think she'll bring the judgment that's needed to play a key role as part of the team as Cabinet. So I'd like to propose Jo and move the report.
Members, any questions or comments on that? Stuart?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for that, Anthony. Sorry to hear that Alan has had to step down through life balance, and I can understand that. And thank you for your efforts, Glenavon, while you were in a Cabinet position. And I'd like to congratulate Jo on her new position and wish her all the very best for the future. But I am tinged with a bit of sadness here, because I represented this council for over 20 years, and there's always been a Cabinet Member in the north of the borough, and well before that. So it's with a bit of sadness that I see now that we no representative in the north of the borough on the Cabinet.
Any other questions, comments?
Just to recognise that point and respond to it, I mean, I can assure you that there are members in the North of this borough, yourself included, who will continue to play a key role within this organisation. Giles is chair of licensing, and I'm sure Alan, as well as Armed Forces Covenant champion, and many other members will play a distinct role. And my door is always open to members from North, South, and Middle.
Congratulations to Jo. I think she will do a grand job. One thing I would like to point out is that the non-Labour members got a third of the seats in this area. Surely it would be a good idea in the future, consider there's a lot of talent on the other side of the spear in here, to put somebody on the front bench down there. And once again, congratulations to Jo.
Any others before we go? Okay, the recommendations then. We've been moved and seconded, so can I have a show of hands, those in favour? Thank you. Anybody against? Thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, we move on to item 11. There's amendment to the Executive Decision-Making Scheme of Delegation and changes to the Constitution, and Justine Cass is going to present for us.
Thank you, Presiding Member. The report's at page 47, members. The purpose of the report is to approve minor amendments to the scheme of executive decision-making, which, if approved, will require amendments to the Constitution. The first part of the amendment is to enable the Assistant Chief Executive of Resources to make decisions to acquire and grant leases up to a certain level instead of the Chief Legal Officer under Category C. As a Chief Legal Officer retired in 2017, and the new Chief Legal Officer is no longer responsible for asset management and is not classified as a Chief Officer for the purposes of decision-making. The second part of the amendment is that currently the Chief Officer can take decisions under Category C to acquire or dispose of land and buildings up to 50,000. It's proposed to increase this to 100,000 to explicitly include leases and licences up to the same limits. It's also proposed to increase the range for executive members for resources Category A decisions from 100,001 pence to 200,000, which again will include leases and licences. Remember, the reasons for these amendments is that firstly, the Constitution is a live document. As you know, this must be amended to reflect the decision-making processes within this local authority. And secondly, the scheme of delegation needs to catch up with increasing property values, and this then enables straightforward transactions to be processed and progressed efficiently without involving Cabinet. In addition to this, leases and licences need to be expressly provided for, as they are a large proportion of our transactions and they fall under Category C. The thresholds will then increase for the executive member, so again it avoids Cabinet involvement unless it's necessary. So, for example, if it's controversial or it exceeds 200,000, then of course it would go to Cabinet. And therefore the recommendations in paragraph 7.1 that Council agrees to approve changes to the scheme of executive decision-making as set out in Appendices 1, and also that the monitoring officer be given delegated authority to amend the Constitution in consultation with the Members' Constitution Working Party to reflect the above changes.
Okay, any questions or comments, Rob?
Thank you, Chair. It's just for clarification, would the Assistant Chief Executive for Resources also be responsible for managing the asset management team themselves, and not just the disposal of the land and leases, but the team as well?
I may as well respond to that. The asset management team sits within the overall Resources Directorate, which I'm the Director of. The actual team is managed, though, by the Head of Strategic HR and Asset Management, working with the Asset Management team.
Anyone else? Okay, in that case, I need to move and second the recommendations. Thank you. Okay, can I have a show of hands then? Those in favour? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you, members. That's agreed. Okay, moving on to item 12 is the capital programme for 2019-20, and Nigel's going to present for us.
Thank you. When we presented the budget in March, there was an intention to come back with a multi-year capital strategy, and as you see in the report, that is still the intention, and we've given some indicative dates in there of November and December, and a lot of that rests on the announcements by the Welsh Government in terms of multi-year capital funding. That being said, we have had resources allocated during this year, and so this report merely seeks to make some interim allocations for the 1920 financial year, over and above those that were already agreed. Paragraph 4.3 details those suggested allocations that have been highlighted by members as ones that they would like to see capital invested in, together with a couple of asset maintenance issues that are also within there. 4.5 then just reiterates the fact that once we start to see the settlement coming out for next year from the Welsh Government, and hopefully some indications beyond that, because obviously we have had the UK spending announcements, then the intention will be to bring back a full multi-year capital strategy. So this is just a set of interim allocations so that we can start spending, addition to what we agreed in March, allocations that we've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I welcome this, the interim allocations, especially in regard to a topic in my ward, and most probably in other councillors' wards as well, where in relation to bus stops, in the very, very poor condition of bus stops. and there hasn't been any money really to carry out the extensive work that's needed there. Don't know whether that amount of money will be enough. And similarly, the footpaths in lots of areas do need resurfacing and what have you, so I welcome this report.
Members, questions, comments, anybody else?
Yeah. Can I just support item 4.3 and particularly the highway amount of £100,000 for bus stops and drop curbs? I think very pleased to see the drop curb issue. We do have a policy of supporting people to be independent, and I think this will go a long way towards it. Thank you very much.
Sentiment, I think it's really good that we can have some money to spend on essential services like the street lighting and the footpaths, and I recommend it.
Okay then, recommendations then, page 59. Can I have somebody to move and second those? Thank you. Okay then, can we have a show of hands on those in favour? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you, members. Those are agreed. We move on then to item 13, motions on notice, and I'll ask Janet Jones then to present her motion.
Thank you. It's been made known that Welsh Government intend to increase eligibility for free bus passes to state pension age. Currently the age is 60, and that residents holding concessionary bus passes in Wales can travel free on local buses. But under the new law, it will see people waiting until the state pension age. Government says that holding a free pass at the time of change to the law will leave residents completely unaffected, and that eligibility age changes will be phased in and entitlement retained. However, the Older Persons Commission, residents and myself have concerns that any changes will have a significant impact on many older people throughout Wales. I am of the opinion that the impact of these changes has not been taken into consideration fully by Welsh Government, or even what action should be put in place to alleviate the impact this can have on our residents. Reliable and accessible transport is so important for older people. They need to retain their independence. They want to be able to get out and about, visit friends, relations, attend hospital and doctor's appointments, and more importantly, stay connected within their own communities. Over the years, many bus services have been lost. Many now are under threat, and a reduction in usage will result in more bus routes being cut, and our residents suffering even more isolation. It is obvious that an increase in the eligibility age of bus passes will affect the most vulnerable residents in our society, those in or near poverty, and those who have given up employment to care for elderly relatives, and even those with long-term health issues. It's for this reason that I ask Torfaen Council to support the motion to urge Welsh Government to retain concessionary bus passes at the current age and not increase them to state pension age. Thank you.
Okay then, members, questions, comments on this? Anybody want to speak? Oh, look up for this one. Stuart?
Just to say, Madam Presiding Officer, I share Councillor Janet's motion, and I think that it's a very valid motion.
Thank you. Yes, I support it as well. I mean, put the age up to 65. There are a lot of people at the age of 60 today that are retired for different reasons, and I know for a fact that a lady in my area, she is not it's coming up to 60, and she hopefully she get hers, and she will say the only reason she will be getting out is because of that bus pass, and she will be reliant on it, otherwise she'll be confined to her home because of a disability, and she's so looking forward to it. So I hope that everybody supports this motion.
Sorry, anybody else want to speak on that? Veronica?
Putting a slightly different spin on it, I think we're all aware of the problems increasingly with cars and the impact on the environment. So all that we can do to encourage people to use public transport, the better.
Peter?
Agree with Councillor Crick there, and also agree with the motion, and thank you to Councillor Jones for bringing this. I think it is an important issue when we talk about isolation, social isolation, and also, people who otherwise wouldn't be able to get about on public transport. So I think it's an important issue. I know there's been a lot of confusion out there with the Transport for Wales website as well, so it's maybe timely that we have this debate and we can point people in the direction of some advice if they need it. So I would like to support the motion and hope that we can make that message known to Welsh Government. I would obviously have a word of defence. They're obviously overstretched with their commitments, just as we are with ours. And so they're having to make difficult decisions, but certainly I hope that the effect of any change on people in that age group would be considered in a way that it hasn't been with other changes, for example with WASPI pensions and TV licences and the pension age being discussed recently. I think the impact of that on people in the age band needs more consideration.
Okay, members, we have a mover and second. Oh, sorry.
Yes, I'd like to go just a little bit further than that, actually. It's not only at that age in life. I'd also like to add some of the problems that some of our younger people have, especially listening to the presentation we had earlier. We've got a strange anomaly at the moment where up until the age 18, there are bus passes available for children to be able to get to education. As soon as they hit the age of 19, they're no longer able to get to the education that they've got. And while we're encouraging people to stay in education for longer, we've now got a problem where people have to make some serious choices when they hit that age of 19, where they've got to consider quite seriously as to whether they can stay in education from the cost. This applies to people going to university for the same time. The restrictions on their bus passes can't be used, or the train passes before the 10 o'clock. People may be surprised that universities start at 9 these days. People can't get there. I think that very, very generally, if we are having a look at the way that we use and we incentivise public transport within Wales, then we need to perhaps consider extending this review, not at the very important time in life when people are coming up to their bus passes, but at their beginning in life, that we could support education and learning far more effectively in young people to get the education that they need to have that start in life. I think it's an ideal opportunity to look at this much further, and I think we should maybe encourage the Council to write to the Welsh Government to that effect, if we could, please.
Are you asking for an amendment to the motion?
I certainly believe that if we can have an amendment to motion, that would be great. But I don't want to take the opportunity now. This is a very important point that Janet makes. But maybe as a council, going forward, we should make some recommendations to Welsh Government.
Certainly, that's something I think we could support if my group colleagues are minded to. I believe the Welsh Government are trying to have a look at the issue with young people specifically. I mean, I think there's a wider discussion to be had about the accessibility of public transport generally. I mean, I got on a bus to Newport from Griffithstown the other day to watch the rugby, and it was £5.80 for a single. How come we've got a situation where in parts of our country like London, there's a regulated system with fairly affordable fares for single journeys, yet there aren't in others? I believe the Welsh Government are trying to bring in the younger people's aspect, because of course, as well as access and education, you've got, £5.80 is okay for me to pay, but if you're going to a minimum wage first job perhaps, after tax that's more than an hour's pay each way, so it's difficult. So I certainly think there's a case for us to maybe piece together after this meeting a letter from the Council to bring in these issues. I'm happy to work on a cross-party basis on that if members are agreeable.
Sorry, just a bit of advice for Leader, if ever he's needing to travel to Newport again. We've got an anomaly here where if you use a Cumbrae bus service to go to Newport, you're quite right, it costs that amount. If you get a Newport bus service, the 29B, it costs you £2.20. And there is a huge anomaly between what the bus people charge, and that is a much wider issue.
Stuart?
Yes, well, you're now in the reality of what being the 40% of us that actually don't have cars, and I'm not being pointed about this. I'm not allowed to drive because of my medical condition. But at the end of the day, I welcome what Janet said here because it's a worrying thing that everybody as an older person has got. I welcome this motion and I welcome what Lee just said because there is a problem and those of you on the Cardiff City deal, we should be having something like the Oyster card for the Cardiff City region. It's very simple because if you live in London, the transport situation, although it's more expensive to live up there, is a lot cheaper. I welcome very much what Jan said. The point is that this thing is a lifesaver. Trying to get down from Blaenavon, which I experience now because my daughter lives up there, and coming down this valley, the anomalies all over the place. It's also with the railways as well, but we won't go into that one. If you know about nodal points, and like my friend here, having served on the Brecon Beacons, try going on transport up there or in Monmouthshire, it gets much worse. But we're going to have that problem when certain things happen, which are coming down the line at the moment, because at the moment we've got a fairly good bus service, but when they start doing the access, which we're going to get, if you look at the rest of Wales, it's happened over there, we're going to get, so at the moment we've got a really good bus service, relatively good bus service, and people are going to get isolated, but the other aspect to this, which I've brought to your attention as well, if you go 3 bus stops, it costs you £1.80. 2 times that is a Cwmbran or Torfaen taxi fare. And if you get 4 people in a taxi, it's a lot cheaper in Cwmbran. Or don't try it up the rest of the valley. So I support this. I support the leader's action on it, and I commend this. All right, thank you.
Giles?
Yes, thanks. As we're on bus services at the moment, we also need to look at in the future about buses being cut in the north of the borough. At the moment, I'm fighting for the residents. We're having bus 23 stops from Pontypool up. So residents who live in...
We talk about the motion, not about the bus services.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's anything to bring up in the future.
Yeah, I think... yeah, if we get back to the motion and we can bring that up again. Okay, so we've got mover and seconder for the motion. I'm presuming we have a show of hands. Thank you. Okay, a show of hands and those in favour. Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That's passed. Okay, we move on to agenda item 14 is members' question time. I think Councillor O'Connell has the first question.
Thank you, Chair. Can the leader update the Council on progress being made at both Cwmbran High School and Ysgol Gyfun Gwynthrew to remove their special measures status?
Okay, thank you, Councillor O'Connell, for the question. I'm sure both myself and education colleagues will strive to keep members more up to date on this important issue and school performance more generally. On Cwmbran High School, the Council applied to Welsh Government to replace the governing body with an interim executive board, or IEB, in July. The Council has received approval from Kirsty Williams, the Welsh Government Minister for Education, and the IEB was established on Monday the 16th of September. The IEB will remain in operation until such time as the school has made sufficient progress. The IEB is fully involved with the current head teacher recruitment process, with appropriate support from local authorities' education services and HR, and the Education Achievement Service in Gwent. The Local Authorities Education Service, in collaboration with the AS, has supported the school with the interim headship arrangements for the autumn term. This is a secondment arrangement for 1 term. Eston will continue to visit the school on a termly basis, focusing on the progress the school has made towards addressing a sample of the recommendations. On Ysgol Gyfun Gwynthrew, the Local Authorities Education Service recognises the significant improvements at Key Stage 4 achieved by the school during the summer provisional results in 2019. Eston are visiting the school tomorrow. The visit will support Eston's formal evaluation of the post-inspection action plan and the local authority's statement of action. Inspectors will discuss the plans with school leaders, the Chair of Governors, the Chief Education Officer, the Exec Member for Education, and address the recommendations highlighted in the report as a matter of urgency. Following agreement of the post-inspection action plan and the local authority's statement of action, Eston will visit the school on a termly basis, focusing on the recommendations the school has made towards addressing a sample of the recommendations.
Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think everybody in this room will look forward to seeing improvements, specifically in Cwmbran High School and Ysgol Gyfun Gwynthrew. But in looking at lessons learned over the last couple of years, can the leader comment on reports that governors were appointed to Cwmbran High School for the sole and explicit purpose of voting off the then chair, as opposed to appointing governors that will provide adequate leadership challenge and whole school benefit.
Well, I believe governors were appointed in line with the special status that the school was in at the time, in order to try and turn around the school and to achieve improvements in performance.
Councillor O'Connell, your second question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Does the leader want to congratulate former Labour Party Torfaen councillor David Thomas on his nomination to be a prospective parliamentary candidate for Torfaen, and will he wish him well in his campaign?
I've got huge respect for anyone who puts themselves forward for election, although I'm sure you'll not be surprised that I'll be backing our Labour candidate in this election. But I do look forward to a respectful debate whenever the election is called.
Do you have a supplementary on that one?
I do. Can I first of all echo the comments? I think it's going to be an interesting campaign. I would like to just clarify something on Leader's declaration of interest that is publicly available, where you have a part-time employment with Nick Thomas-Symonds MP. Can you confirm if this is a publicly funded position? And can you also assure members that it does not interfere with your role at council? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Ron Burnett.
Start again. Leader, you were asked to comment on the effectiveness of the opposition at the last council meeting. Would the leader agree with me that an effective opposition challenges the council's executive not by grandstanding with petty point-scoring questions at full council, but holding the executive to account and working to find constructive solutions with the community we serve on scrutiny and other council meetings?
I'd like to thank Councillor Bennett for the question. I think he makes a good point about the behind-the-scenes work that we do. It's far removed from sort of Prime Minister's questions and what lots of people talk about politicians in sort of less kind terms about. And I believe it's part of the work that we all do to try and do the best by those we represent. And I think that's true across the chamber of people of all political shades. I think the work in scrutiny meetings and other meetings, for example, I attended the area meeting we had for neighbourhood services recently, and that was, good cross-party work that we're trying to do to represent those that we serve. And I think that's important work away from the publicity of perhaps other parts of our jobs, especially in today's social media age.
Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Could the leader let councillor know what efforts the four independent members have made to engage in the workings of this council in response to the seats vacated of them 3 months ago?
I believe, as Councillor Clark said earlier in the meeting, that we've approached the WLJ about the points about the scrutiny committees. I'm not aware of any other progress.
Councillor Dave Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Chair. Can the executive member explain how the Labour executive consider it possible to maintain the Monmouthshire and Brecon Canal throughout Torfaen without setting aside a budget to pay for it?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Thomas. We are fully aware of the regard our communities hold the canal in, the use of the canal by the community and for its ecological and environmental value. I also fully recognise our responsibilities in terms of it as an asset which needs to be inspected and maintained. As the owner of a section of the canal through the county borough, we have certain responsibilities that we discharge, including periodic inspections, grass hedge cutting, utilising general highway maintenance budgets and the use of in-house resources. I'll stress that again. We use general highway maintenance and also street scene budgets to undertake our necessary maintenance and inspections. Our budget management systems do not currently split out this expenditure due to the officer time in terms of recording. Our financial systems need to be proportionate, which I'm sure members in these austere times can fully appreciate. Our inspections, etc., ensure any safety issues are identified and responded to as necessary. Allied to this, we have undertaken discrete projects to deal with such aspects as weed growth, utilising weevils as a natural solution, which was a collaborative effort and demonstrates our commitment to work in partnership to maintain and improve the canal in an ever-hardening financial climate. The work we do ensures the integrity of the canal is maintained, and I'm pleased to advise that we have been successful in securing significant capital funding for investment to support and renew elements of the canal. This funding is part of the Adventure Triangle Visit Wales European ERDF funding. And the plans are 103,000 has been spent on the towpath improvements along the Cwmbran section of the canal 2019-2020. 720,000 is programmed for dredging the navigatable section of between Pontymoll and Five Locks. We are currently estimating costs for dredging on the Cwmbran section that we also hope to fund through the Adventure Triangle programme. 57,000 is programmed for a pump out and electrical hookup facility at Five Locks Canal Basin that will encourage boaters to use the canal, that will in turn reduce the need for dredging. I think it's also worth noting that since 2007 we've received £3 million in EU funding for various projects to support the canal. As a council, we have also ensured via the South Sebastopol development that the canal will both be protected and enhanced. We have sought to engage with the community in maintaining and improving the canal, and much of the recent improvements have taken place within the welcome assistance of volunteers. The members will be aware that we have recently engaged with other local interest groups to work on continuing and maintaining this community asset with the community. To conclude, I hope that I have demonstrated that whilst within the budget book there may not be an explicit line which says canal, I am able to demonstrate that we do take our responsibility as custodians of the asset incredibly seriously, and we are looking to work in partnership and seek external funding wherever possible.
Councillor Thomas, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do indeed. I'm glad you mentioned funding there. Can the executive member explain why the council has allowed the canal at the Teacoke Lock Flight to deteriorate to its current condition following the Waterworks restoration project that was opened in 2017? And wouldn't she agree that the Labour executive has effectively wasted 1.4 million lottery funding that paid for it?
I don't know the state of the canal at the moment. This is when you've raised this with me now, so I can go back and find out and come back to you as to how bad it is. But I wasn't aware of how bad it's gone to. I know the water levels dropped when we discussed that there was an issue there before, but other than that, I'm not clear. So I'll get back to you.
Okay, Councillor Thomas, your second question.
Thank you, Madam President, Chair. Following the topping out ceremony undertaken on the 12th of September, can the executive member confirm that the construction of the Torvine Learning Zone remains on schedule and confirm the target date for its opening?
But you would expect a little more substance to the answer than that. Thank you for the question. The topping out ceremony that took place at the Cwmbran site the week before last was indeed a significant milestone, not only in the development of the building itself, but certainly in the transformation of post-16 education in the borough going forward. I'm happy to report that the completion date of August 2020 is on track, and we fully expect that to be the case. In fact, we've been promised that the building will be complete sometime before that in order to give staff at Coleg Gwent time to familiarise themselves with the internal dynamics of the building and indeed to embark on the logistical process of constructing the enrolment sessions for the month of August. So I hope that in part answers the question. But I would like to carry on and say that I'm sure that all members will appreciate that a project of this nature requires some inputs, not only from developers, the contractors, but from other elements in the project team, if you like. Certainly, staff at Coleg Gwent, along with teachers at the schools, have been involved over the last 12 months or so in constructing a programme that will allow the learners in our borough to move as smoothly as it is possible for them to do from their indigenous schools to the new facility at Cwmbran. I'm sure that all members would share with me that notion that we should congratulate not only the developers but all members of staff, including officers of Torfaen County Borough Council, members of Coleg Gwent, and indeed members of the teaching staff in some of our schools, because they've all played a tremendous part excuse me, in the pace of progress to date, and I commend them for that.
Okay, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. It was brilliant to see some of the Learning Zone's potential customers at the topping out ceremony. Can the executive member explain why only one of our secondary schools, Crossy Ceiliog, was represented, and could he at least confirm that all our comprehensive schools, particularly those in the north of the county, were indeed given the opportunity to attend?
Yeah, I share with you both the joy and the dismay that only one school was represented by pupils. I talked to many of those pupils and their teachers. I have made overtures to other schools on an unofficial basis, both in the run-up and since then, and I will pursue that because it was a golden opportunity for all schools to be involved in what is a magnificent project. And as a tailpiece to that as well, I have to say that I was at a conference in Cardiff last Thursday and Friday where the Minister was in situ. She not only made a formal announcement regarding the post-16 in the context of the amount of money that this council has paid into or spent in the 21st Century Schools programme, but she did make specific reference to the post-16 institution, and several of the other members from different authorities right throughout Wales came to see me afterwards, asking me questions about it, and clearly people in other parts of Wales are envious about what we've done, and I think it's a time for celebration in that sense. But I do take on board your point, and I will pursue that up because it was a golden opportunity, in my view, missed by some of the schools.
Okay then, members, moving on to item 15, Cabinet decisions from the 10th of September. So these are on page 63 of the agenda. Any comments or anything, questions about these? In that case, are we happy to note those decisions? Yeah, no show of hands, yeah, thank you. Brilliant. Okay, moving on to item 16, which is the exclusion of the press and the public for the confidential item. So I will ask... switched off, is it? Yeah, I do it.